Hamas has released 2 American hostages abducted earlier this month in its attack on southern Israel. Judith Raanan and her daughter Natalie are the first to be freed after 200 people were taken by the terrorist group. It comes after mediation by Qatar and Egypt. Joining me now live is Dean of Global Futures at Curtin University, Professor Joe Siracusa. Thanks for joining us this afternoon. What would have gone on behind the scenes to free these 2 women?
Good afternoon, Danica. Well, the U.S. Secretary of State, Tony Blinken, would have been in touch with the International Red Cross, which are the neutral agencies that work with terrorist organizations or act as interlocutors in the past in a number of places. And so there have been negotiations going on there. And it's more than a goodwill gesture. I mean, it's also kind of like propaganda, too, but it's awfully good news for Blinken. Americans, Danica, have an incredible sentimentality about getting their hostages back. I mean, the hostages have come from a place where there are 5,000 dead people, 15,000 injured people, no food, water, or electricity. And of course, Americans will be very excited about this. This comes on top of the president's speech yesterday. And of course, the speech means nothing if we don't get a Speaker of the House of Representatives, from which all the money bills originate. So, we've got no Speaker of the House, no way to originate money bills, that is to pay for these arms to Ukraine or to Israel. In 29 days, the American government will be out of money. It's got war waging in a couple of places. And, it's just as bad as it can get. I mean, America seems incredibly disorganized right now. And, of course, Biden is trying to keep a handle on this. He wants Israel to defeat Hamas without annihilating Gaza, and that's very hard because Hamas is embedded in the tunnels and in the corners. I mean, Gaza is like the old Casbah in certain places where, it's really hard to find somebody. You need 800 men to lock down a 2-block area. There's almost nothing left in certain places. So it's urban warfare. It's tunnel warfare, as a matter of fact. So America's going to have to think about that. But it's a very gloomy outlook unless there's a change of mind. And of course, the Arabs in the region are very, very stirred up. There are about 480 million Arabs in the greater in the Middle East, and their publics are very pro-Gazan. I mean, people from Gaza are all Palestinians are Arabs, though not all Arabs are Palestinians. And so there's a lot of the leaders in these places, a lot of the people that America likes to deal with are terrified of their publics. Yeah, because if the publics get very angry, I mean, they're going to tear these governments down. And Danica, we might be on the verge of another Arab Spring.
Well, look, I mean, there's obviously a lot of tension there right now. I just want to go back, though, to the hostages here, Joe, because why do you think that Hamas agreed to set these 2 women free? They've taken about 200 people from southern Israel in that attack 2 weeks ago. So why do you think it was in particular these 2 women that they let go?
Well, there are about 3 reasons here, I reckon. One of them is propaganda. It makes them look like human beings. I mean, up to this time, Hamas has been dehumanized, as a matter of fact. They've been acting like beastly behavior in their initial attack. So it makes them look human. It's about propaganda. And number 2, there are 500 Arab women who are in prisons in Israel. It might be the beginning of a swap, later on in the next couple of days. Of course, there are a lot of children there who are with the women. So that might be the beginning of the swap. And I think most of all, it drives a wedge between Americans who are thinking very hard about how to go forward on this and the Israelis, who have got their own problems, as a matter of fact. So it drives a wedge between American public, and the Israeli public. And the Americans figure, well, if we get our 15, 30 Americans out of there, we've kind of solved our problem. Doesn't solve any of Israel's problems, as a matter of fact. So I think it's not only, it's a good move on their part. In fact, it's the only play they had, is to release some of these people. And I'm afraid these women are got a very sad story to tell once they sit down with somebody. Most of these hostages were terribly abused, and it's very sad. But as I say, America is very happy to get them back, and they come from my area, the greater Chicago area. So I've been following the Chicago newspapers. They're quite happy with this result. But it doesn't solve much for most of the problem. Gaza is being turned into a parking lot. We got lots of casualties. We still need to get those trucks in, and we have to open those corridors. And there is a large wedge, I think, in the American public. A lot of the American public had kind of given up on Ukraine. So when the president tied the two of them together, it made a bit of a mistake. While they're prepared to help Israel, mainly because they don't know any other way to help Israel, most Americans are looking for a diplomatic settlement in Ukraine, and they don't want to give Ukraine any more money or ammunition or that kind of thing. So the president, he rolled the dice on that one, and I think he made a mistake, actually. And I got to tell you something, Danica. The president's speechwriter began that speech with, this is an inflection point. That's the 100th time I've heard that now in a couple years. Yeah. This guy ought to be taken out and whipped. It's a terrible word.
Let's talk more then about that speech, because it was really designed to, I guess, call for more support, call for more funding, as you said, not only to the Israel conflict, but also to the ongoing Ukraine conflict. How do you see this playing out in Israel in the event that Israel does launch that ground offensive that you mentioned? What will America's involvement be, and could other world powers, even like Australia, be called upon as well?
I think Australia might be called upon as a friend of America in turn, and also a friend of Israel, too. Look, there's the prospect here for a larger regional war, because these publics in Jordan and Iran and other places, they're not going to watch Palestinians suffer much more without getting involved. And, of course, all those American ships in the Mediterranean are there to deter missiles or attacks on Israel from these places. And of course, I could see this thing getting very big very quickly, particularly if Hezbollah, which is bankrolled by the Iranians, get involved on the Israeli border. And I think you're going to have problems in Syria with the Iranian-paid militia there, and in Libya, and in Yemen, in places like that. And of course, the key thing here is Iran. I mean, Iran has been the paymaster for all the stuff that's been going on. And, there are a lot of Americans who would like to finally have it out with Iran. And of course, Iran only listens to force, and they're going to pause a little bit on that border. We've got to the point, Danica, where Russia, the Russian leader, the Chinese, Turkish leaders, they're all asking for humanitarian corridors. They're asking for a ceasefire, and the American ambassador to the United Nations vetoed a humanitarian ceasefire because it didn't condemn the initial attack. Now we're starting to lose lives because we're arguing about words, and words aren't going to help too many people. I mean, people are dying there very quickly. And I'll tell you what, I followed Israel for 50 years. The wars there, and I'll tell you what, it's just hard to watch these scenes, both what Hamas did and what's happening to those, particularly the children in Gaza. It's just it's unbearable to watch this.
Yeah, absolutely. I think everyone would agree with you there.